Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Breakfast Club. Let's get on with it. So, lately, it could just be me, but lately it seems that there's a kind of paradigm shift going on when it comes to earning one's income. What I mean by that is it seems that more and more people are trying to find ways to not have to work a 9 to 5, so to speak, where they want to, do their own thing to make their money. And sometimes they are resorting to what some people would consider unorthodox means. Now, this isn't anything new. I mean, the desire to want to not have to work under the man. Like so many people want to start their own business or be their own boss. And you hear that all the time. And generally we celebrate the person who's able to do that. However, I'm thinking that lately I'm seeing more and more people, at least more than usual. Again, it could just be me, but it just feels like more and more people are trying to find ways to not have to work a job. And I'm thinking that it could be an indication of a paradigm shift that is happening in terms of how we're going to be going about our lives. The reason why I'm thinking this is because we've gone through something similar before. And by we, I'm just simply talking about humanity in general. The last big shift I can think of is the time period that historians call the Industrial Revolution. Never mind the fact that some people are debating whether the term revolution should be used or not, but for now, we're just using the common term, the Industrial Revolution, which started in Britain and changed a whole lot. And I mean, not just in the obvious way. I mean, the Industrial Revolution was basically a major transition to a new manufacturing process. Before, manufacturing goods was done on a kind of individual level. You had a person or a few people who were able to do things like, produce textiles, produce metal goods, shoes, just manufacturing different tools and items that people need. You had people who specialized in that particular skill, and you earned a living that way. And sometimes people would apprentice under you to learn these things, like, blacksmithing, cobbling, things like that. But with the Industrial Revolution, you suddenly could mass produce these things. Now you had machines that could just churn these things out. So suddenly the individual being able to do this stuff was no longer really needed and became obsolete. So now, so many of these people, rather than going to work for themselves, they were now using these skills to go into factories and mass produce those. And the one who owned the factory was the one who was going to be making the profit. Before, the individual would be making that profit directly. Now, it's the factory owner. And that in itself would cause a lot of interesting shifts in society as people started talking about their worth as a worker and whether it was ethical or not. And then when you add onto the top, on top of that, things like standards of living and poverty that was surrounded by that, and some of the abuses that were seen with this sort of system as this time period was starting out, you got to see some interesting commentary on this. This is the sort of thing that ended up bringing out philosophies such as socialism and communism. Because remember, Karl Marx, with his manifesto, was basically talking about the struggles that were going on between this new group of people, these workers, and those who own the factories. Really interesting period to study if you haven't studied it, because so much changed. And our concepts of what it means to make a living changed because of it. I'm not going to be getting into what was good about the Industrial Revolution, what is bad. That's not really the subject of this video. And people are still debating on the merits of it. I think overall we can admit, though, that ultimately it led to good things for society, because so much of what we take advantage of in our modern times pretty much came about because of it. Certain mishaps and misfortunes that came about it notwithstanding. But I really think it's an interesting period of history to study, especially when you realize that there were a lot of people who weren't exactly happy that it was coming about during their time period. They saw it as a new form of slavery. Some people were seeing it as exploitation. You can see those struggles. I mean, everything from, socialist movements to workers' unions popping up came about because of the growing pains of this new paradigm, this new shift in manufacturing. But with this new shift of manufacturing also came this new shift in how to make a living, as I stated before. It no longer really became about earning a trade and then using your own hands or your own skills to, make your income, bring bread, bring food to your table. Now it became more of a common thing for you to work for someone else. It used to be, before it was like a foreign idea, and some people even considered it a very detestable idea, but as time went on, it became the norm. This was the new paradigm. You now basically went to school and got an education, whether it be through a trade school or college or whatever, and then you went out and basically marketed your skills to someone else, or basically to a corporation or group of people, and you were selling those skills so that you could manufacture the goods or do the services that they required to keep their company going. That's how you would earn your living. It was no longer your work directly working towards you. It was more your work working to work for someone else, and in return, they gave you a wage. And again, your own thoughts on whether this is fair or not, notwithstanding, this was and still remains the norm. This is what you are expected to do. Generally, people are expected that you're going to go to school and get your education, and you become an adult, you get a job. That's what you do. Now, there are a few outliers. We know of the so-called self-made people who start their own businesses. We also know of people who are entertainers who pretty much with their own entertainment talents earn their income that way. You got, people who, through their own talents, like start their own, food services, maybe start their own restaurant. But of course, they're going to later on end up hiring workers themselves, and the chain continues. It's just that they were able to get out of the loop by becoming the ones pulling the strings themselves. But you can hear these few outliers. But most people say that, that's few and far between. These were the lucky ones. The ones who became celebrities, like actors or, actors or other types of celebrities, entertainers, sports figures, musicians, artists. These are the guys who were somehow their talent was so great that they were able to get outside of the whole having to get a job. Your regular 9-to-5 working stiff job. But lately I'm seeing more and more people trying to find a way to get away from that. Big indicator, for instance, is the whole YouTube thing. Now, I don't make a living off of this. I just post this up as it's just something I like to do. It started out as a hobby, and it still basically is, and I like sharing my thoughts with other people. But there are other people who have actually been able to turn this into an actual living. A few to staggering results. I'm sure we've heard of people like PewDiePie, for instance, who have been able to bring in income of millions off of this entertainment stuff on YouTube. There are other people who maybe they're not bringing in millions, but they're still at least able to bring in enough to sustain themselves. This is a whole new industry. You got people who have been able to use their talents to kind of go back to the old model of making their own things with their own hands and selling them through the internet. Like for Etsy, for instance, people who were able to sell things like jewelry and clothing and soaps and hats, and weird masks, things like that, in order to earn their own income. And more people are jumping onto that idea. You got some people who have actually been able to earn a living just selling things on eBay. Just finding items that people would like and then just selling it off to somebody else for profit. And more people are looking at these things and going, I could do that. I really want to do that. And more people are trying to buck the trend of having to work for a living. And this is all telling me that I think that we're facing a new paradigm shift. And the reason why I'm thinking that isn't just because of just this desire to break free and people are finding new means to finally break away from it. Like the internet has really been proving itself valuable and people finding new ways to live their lives. But I'm also thinking it's just a simple fact that the way our economy has been working and the way, our model of work and our model of being able to earn a living, it's becoming outdated. It's becoming outmoded. Think of it this way. When it comes to manufacturing, for instance, everything is basically being automated. We now got robots and machines that can do the things that humans used to need to do. And with having to make, these automated things do the work, that's less people you need to hire. And those guys need to find a new job, but their skills are becoming obsolete. So what do? You have, and I know this is hotly contested, you got people who, are in the whole resource industry, coal, gas. But those industries, whether you want to admit it or not, are drying up. That's one of the reasons why they're trying to move over to green energy. Now, I know people are debating the whole, it's being done to ruin our economies and all that, but really, the easy ways we used to be able to extract these resources are drying up, and they're having to find harder and harder ways to do it. And as these things start drying up, you don't need as many people to do it because you don't have as many places to get this done. Where are these people going to go to get jobs? How are their skills going to be used once their skills get used up and are obsolete? You're finding more and more people being tied to a system where they're no longer needed. There are more efficient ways to do it. Human labor is no longer needed in these fields. And other fields where human labor could be useful, they're getting overcrowded. So you're having more and more people who now need to find a new way to earn a living. And the few jobs that are out there for them aren't paying enough, or there's just not enough of them. So what are they going to do? This is a very important question that we're going to have to face as the years roll on. Because whether we want to admit it or not, the old ways of doing this, the old ways of earning an income are being phased out. Human labor is going to be needed less and less and less. And that means more and more people out of work who are going to still need to find a way to feed themselves. And that's why I'm thinking this paradigm shift is coming in. People are finding new ways. Some of them are actually old if you think about it. But they're finding different ways to be able to earn that income. This video's already gone long enough, but it's something that I want people to think about. This interesting shift that's going on and what we can do about it. Because it's happening whether you want to realize it or not. The one piece of advice I have to anybody watching this right now is to find your niche. I mean, this is a cliche bit of advice. Everyone's heard this. Do what you love and the money will follow. But now it's really important to seriously start thinking about that. Find your niche. What is it that you're good at? What is it that you know you can do over and over that you got a high skill for and that people really want to see you do? Like if you're good at cars, you're good at putting cars together and things like that, working on machines, and people keep coming to you for help, you might want to leverage that. If you're good at working with computers, you might want to leverage that. If you're good at just making jokes, you might want to leverage that, because the standard way of going about things, what we were expected to do to earn a living, it may not be so normal anymore. It's not going to be guaranteed for much longer. This has gone on long enough, but I hope this was interesting for you guys. And I'll catch you guys later.